all of that good stuff, right? And then like somewhere in the middle is our brain processing things simultaneously. And then comes our action. I'm on the road today, and I do tend to record videos, like, not videos, but record myself, my thoughts, ideas, things I'm working through on call or on, long drives. So that is what I am here to do. I went ahead and got a mount and everything so that I could do that safely and like actually have a good frame. So yes, first off is peace, wishing folks well. It's like halfway through the year, and at this point there's a lot of like, I think, motivational elements to that. There's some like gratitude elements to that, like we made it this far and undoubtedly I know it's like a natural time where you can kind of sit in where you're at, like versus being in a transition. I feel like it's like kind of like making it into a transition when it isn't one. I feel like when you're in the middle of something, like we just finished the solstice and now we're like in the summertime, it's like the energy is going to be potent, and it is, right? I think what I want to talk about today is perception, because it's been on my mind, it's been on my radar for a little while here, and I definitely have had some nice little like revelations about it. And when I say like nice little, I mean like, I guess, undeniable. And it seems like they're right on time. So I figured we could get into it. And I am not at the point yet where I like make notes for these videos, because I feel like the practice here is a root chakra practice. It is a self-study practice. It is a, like, even a community practice, because obviously I'm not talking to myself, even though I am currently by myself. I am hoping that, like, there's some resonance with other people and, like, connection that can come from it. And I guess where I'll start this off is I think that's an okay thing. Like, the desire for connection, to be seen, to be understood, to feel like welcome and to be part of something bigger than yourself. I think for some people that can start at like family, and some people that's like the activities that you take part in and the communities that you kind of like volunteer to be a part of. Maybe the folks from your yoga studio, or maybe the folks from even from like work and stuff. So there's the spaces that we, enter to share, kind of like share interests, and even if just like momentarily and in pieces, share experiences. And I find this like interesting because it's like, especially when we're able to acknowledge that we're kind of complex beings, like there's a lot of different facets to people, and like lots of things can be true at once. There's a question of like what you stand on. I think that's what's been like getting to me lately, is like, what do I stand on versus like how am I perceived, and how much control do I have or need over how I'm seen. Because truthfully, I am a much more long-winded person. I can be, and sometimes I think about like the most prevalent form of being perceived these days is social media. And like I'm not as active on social media as I am a social person. I like feel in my heart, right? Like I enjoy gathering. I enjoy being in front of people and around people and hearing from them and like sharing things, even sometimes oversharing. The issue of the internet is that you're oversharing with strangers and without as much context. But all that to say, the thing about being perceived in a like broad sense, and then you think about what your essence is, it's like moving from the inside out. And I was trying to record something about this earlier this week, but I ended up doing my like pause to think a little bit too much, especially for a reel. It was supposed to be short. But I really feel like in this experience of life, it's really interesting to consider the elements that come from within, again, like kind of that concept of your essence, and then like our interpretation of the world around us, our interaction with the world around us, like the information that's coming in through our eyes versus the information that is real and intangible within us from our previous experiences, and like some would argue from previous lives, from like our ancestry, all of that good stuff, right? And then like somewhere in the middle is our brain processing things simultaneously, and then comes our action. And when I studied perception and like philosophy, psych, those kind of intersections, I used to love like conceptually sorting that shit out and like thinking about it. But now I definitely feel like I'm living it more, and it's not that things are at odds, but like the external and internal are at odds. But it's so interesting to consider like the wake of our actions, the impact of our presence, right? And the amount of responsibility that we have for how that should translate, and like the concept that like what other people think of you is none of your business. Because I think, and that's where I really believe that intention comes into play, because yeah, you want to have a positive, at the very least neutral effect on people, right? You live your life, I will live my life, it is all good in between. But then when we really consider like our auric fields interacting, our personalities interacting, life experiences, and the fact that like for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, like, and one thing you'll probably learn about me if you hang out and stay time on this, spend time on this channel and like, you know, tune in to whatever, is that I'm a pseudoscientist, and I'm proud of it. I do not mind. I will mix psychology, physics, and biology all in the same concept, because why not? Feel free to counter. But when we think about like our internal worlds interacting with each other's internal worlds, and like the external elements as well, there's so many factors to interacting with other people that like there's only so much that we can do to control how our intentions, internal world affects the external world, let alone the internal world of someone else. There's only so much control that we have over those things. And that doesn't mean that they don't matter, but as far as like what we should be busying our mental capacity with, and like our judging our actions and impact by that, yeah, I think like what other people think of you in a general sense, not the kind of person you are, but what other people might think, is something to go ahead and like free yourself from. And that means a lot to me. I feel like I am a retired people pleaser, and a lot of people use that word nowadays, that phrase. But it's not a small thing. I've definitely observed that there are people in this world who and it took getting out of my bubble of sweet, I say generally sweet, small town, southern religious people that I grew up with, and kind of was coddled by, that there's definitely people out in this world who and with no malintent, do not care what other people think. They will do the right thing. That will do the right thing. I can't even say they, but that these people, this concept that you can do the right thing and be divorced from overstepping your bounds as far as how it is received. If you know that you're doing the right thing, then how that is received is going to be dependent on so many factors that it is potentially a waste of energy to try and calculate the exact pros and cons, the exact costs and benefits. So bringing that back to perception, I definitely have a somewhat refreshed perspective on that. And like I said, I believe, you could argue that most people, are aiming for neutral to positive as far as how they affect other people. But this concept of being seen and understood, I think it's reserved for intimacy, or it's meant to be an organic experience. And I think there are some elements of our being social animals, and it's interesting, the concept of our nature versus our and not versus, but our nature and our higher self, and the concept of essential needs. And I would argue that social connection is an essential need for survival, for stability, and sanity. That people are not really meant to be alone. And I would even I want to say even monks are not necessarily alone. There's other monks, depending on the sect or whatever path. But just to say, it's a rare occasion where it's humans volunteering to be alone, and that's for a reason, and for life, right? There's times when you need it, and I feel I did the self-isolating thing to process the world that was around me and what I needed to do in it. And I took a break in some ways, or I wanted desperately to take a break from being perceived so I could get my shit together to be perceived better, or the way I should be, right? But then even in making that decision, I'm well, that's not me. The isolation isn't me, and now I'm being misperceived again. So again, it's the amount of control over the end result makes our observations of how we're being perceived kind of negligible, unless someone's really giving you straight feedback. Then who's to say, And it's more important for us to be rooted in why we do what we do and what we stand on in a universal, an ongoing sense. And that can change, but I think it's being engaged in the process of determining that, and being willing to do it for yourself. Because people will tell you about yourself, or try to, sometimes because they care about you, sometimes because they can't stand you, Sometimes because they are jealous of what's happening with you, right? There's all sorts of reasons. But, you know, essentially, there's an important, like, the clarity of purpose that comes from within, and like with, again, that our perception versus controlling other people's perception. What we do with the information that we get from the external world, as well as what our intuition brings to the forefront for us. I think it's so important that we tune into that and decipher like what's feelings, what is information, what is intuition, what is like insecurity, and what, you know, we work with that and have the confidence to move with that clarity, or have the clarity to move with confidence. Law, both and, please. Right? The lakes. Yeah, those bumps really did it. So, thank you for watching, and if you are with it, you want to join the conversation, you feel me, go ahead and, I'm not even gonna say like, share, and subscribe, but like if you could comment and like and subscribe. Sharing, just you listening is like a lot for me, so do what you will with that.